What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back to a new review. For today I have the latest device from UMIDIGI called the UMIDIGI S2 Lite. Now, if you've seen my review of the UMIDIGI S2 Pro, you know that that phone was kind of expensive and it wasn't that great. Well, the S2 Lite, it's actually half the price, so you can buy this phone for about $150, and I find this phone better than the S2 Pro. So what do we get for that price? Well, first of all, we get a phone that looks very similar to the original S2 Pro. We have a metallic back and a 6-inch screen on the front of the device. Now, the screen looks very nice, but unfortunately, we only get a 720p resolution, and I know some of you are gonna be disappointed by that. The phone is using the MTK6750T, which is an octa-core CPU that's paired with 4 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of internal storage. Out of that 32 gigs of internal storage, we only have about 24 gigs left, but luckily the phone can take an SD card, and that SD card can also be used as internal storage. There is also a 5100 mAh battery and stock Android 7, and supposedly this phone will get an update to Android 8 sometimes in May, but I can't really confirm that. Now, about that 5100 mAh battery, so you're going to be able to make it through an entire day and get about 7 to 8 hours of screen on time. And considering that we have that power-hungry MediaTek 6750T, I think that's pretty decent. As I mentioned earlier, the back of the phone is made out of metal, and I have to say the phone looks quite good whenever it's clean, but keeping this phone clean, it's not an easy task. So on the back there, you're going to find a 16 megapixel camera. We also have a 5 megapixel camera, a dual tone flash, and a fingerprint scanner. I find that the fingerprint scanner works better on this phone than it worked on the original S2 Pro, and that's kind of funny considering that this phone costs only about $150, so half the price. So all you have to do is touch the fingerprint scanner and the phone will unlock, and it takes about half a second for the screen to come on after you touch the fingerprint scanner. On the right hand side of the phone we have the power button and the volume keys, and the buttons are also made out of metal, but I find that they rattle a bit whenever you're shaking the phone. Not bad, but it's definitely noticeable. Nothing on top of the device, and on the left hand side you're gonna find the slot for the SIM card. So this device can take either 2 SIM cards or a SIM card and an SD card. And moving all the way to the bottom of the device, there we have the microphone, we have the USB-C port and the speaker. Now the speaker seems to get loud enough, but it's only one tiny little speaker, and it's also very easy to cover whenever you're holding the phone. But here is a quick sample of how the speaker sounds. And just before we go any further, would you be kind enough to press that like button and maybe subscribe if you haven't done so already? And we're moving back to that USB-C port. So first of all, the phone supports OTG, so you can plug in any USB stick. But there is something strange about the USB-C port. So if you take a closer look at the cable that comes in the box, you're going to notice that the cable is somewhat longer than a regular USB-C cable. Now, you can still use regular USB-C cables with this phone, but it's something to keep in mind for the future. And lastly, charging the phone from 0 to 100 is done in just under 3 hours with the charger that comes in the box. And we're moving to the front of the device and starting all the way at the top. So first of all, at the top, you're going to find the camera that's used for the Face ID. We also have a little notification light and a 5 megapixel front-facing camera. The Face ID works decent, but it really depends how much light you have around you, because if you're in a dark room, the Face ID is not gonna work. However, you can use the Face ID together with the fingerprint scanner, so if the Face ID doesn't work, you can just press the fingerprint scanner and the phone will unlock. As for the picture quality from that front-facing camera, well, as we've seen in the past, if you have plenty of light, the pictures turn out decent. Not exceptional, but decent, but as soon as you don't have enough light, the pictures become kind of grainy and blurry. But once again, we've seen that in the past for a lot of budget devices. The 16-inch screen has a resolution of 1440 by 720, so realistically a 720p resolution. I know a lot of you are gonna be disappointed by that, but the screen isn't that bad. So the colors are very nice and vibrant, the viewing angles are also great, and the screen gets bright enough so you can actually see it outside. So overall, this is a very nice looking screen. The screen sensitivity is very good as well, and I haven't had any issues whenever I was typing, and the screen can register up to 5 touches at the same time. The navigation buttons are also sitting at the bottom of the screen, and they can also be moved around from the software. As I mentioned earlier, this phone is using the aging MediaTek 6750T, and in my opinion it's kind of the time to retire this CPU. Now, because the phone is using something very close to stock Android, there is nothing holding the phone back, so the scores that we're gonna get on the Antutu benchmark and the Geekbench 4 are kind of good for that MediaTek 6750T. With the 4 gigs of RAM that we have available, multitasking is also possible, so you can keep a whole bunch of apps running in the background, and you can even use the split screen function from Android 7, and that one works good as well. The UI is fairly speedy, so scrolling in between screens, opening apps, closing apps, everything is done in a decent enough time, but of course you're not going to be able to compare this to the flagship from another company. I tried a whole bunch of apps on this phone, and if you give the apps a couple of seconds to load, you shouldn't have any issues with any app afterwards. Of course, for gaming, the phone is not gonna do that great for heavy games, but most games that you're gonna be able to download from the Google Play Store will do more than okay. So overall, I'm very pleased to see that UMIDIGI got back to that stock Android, because with the UMIDIGI S2 Pro, they had this horrible UI that was just slowing down the phone, but that's not the case with this one. In this one, it's actually very speedy and a lot faster than that UMIDIGI S2 Pro. Alright, so we are moving to those two cameras on the back of this phone. So we have a 16 megapixel camera and a 5 megapixel camera. Now, unfortunately, the second camera it's useless. So if you're hoping to take those cool pictures with the bokeh effect, well, that's not happening, because the bokeh effect is software generated. Therefore, all the pictures that you're gonna take with the bokeh effect look absolutely horrible. So we might as well say that we only have one camera on the back of this phone. The camera app is fairly quick, but it takes a bit longer to focus in low light conditions, but that's kind of normal for budget phones. Now, the pictures that I took with this phone seem to be better than the pictures that I took with the UMIDIGI S2 Pro. So if you have plenty of light, the pictures turn out quite decent. So they're very detailed, the colors are fairly accurate, and the dynamic range isn't bad. Of course, it could be improved, but overall for a phone that costs about $150, I think it takes decent enough pictures. I was surprised to see that even the pictures that I took in low light looked somewhat decent, and as I said before, better than the UMIDIGI S2 Pro. Of course, if you zoom in, you're gonna notice that the pictures are kind of blurry and there is a lot of grain in there, but overall, once again, for a phone that costs about $150, I think the pictures that I took in low light are acceptable. Even the GPS unit inside this phone seems to be a bit better than the one that we had on the UMIDIGI S2 Pro. So it takes the phone maybe 2 to 3 seconds to find your location, and whenever you're using Google Maps, it works okay. You may see the phone losing your location for a couple of seconds every now and then, but overall it does work okay. There are a lot of sensors available as well, including a gyroscope, so if you're planning to use this phone as a VR headset, you can do that, and all the sensors seem to do good as well. For connectivity, the phone supports dual band Wi-Fi and 4G connectivity, and I'm happy to see that this phone has more bands than we usually get with most budget phones from China. And that's a good thing, and we've seen that for previous UMI devices. Now, I don't believe that it has all the bands that the UMIDIGI S2 Pro used to have, so I'm pretty sure it's missing some bands, but overall still better than a lot of other budget phones out there. The call quality is average, and the speaker on top here seems to get loud enough so you can hear most conversations, so no complaints about that. And the speeds that I got over 4G and the dual band Wi-Fi were actually better than a lot of phones that I tried in the past, and the Wi-Fi range is also pretty decent. And it's time to conclude this video. So this has been one of the best UMIDIGI devices that I tried in quite some time, because the UMIDIGI S2 Pro, well, I have to say that I was kind of disappointed. I mean, it was expensive and it wasn't that great, but this one for about $150, it does seem to work much better. Now, once again, for $150, you do have quite a few options out there. So you can look at the Xiaomi Redmi 5 Plus, for example, and that's about $150. So it really depends what you like and how you like your phones to look. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.